Next up in the Heat Check series is Baylor combo guard Keyonte George. He was my number 3 prospect heading into college basketball, so stay tuned to see if he stayed that high on my board. An IMG Academy graduate playing alongside Jarris Walker, Jet Howard, and more, George has long been one of the highest touted guards in this class. Listed at 6'4", 185 pounds, George is a stocky bucket getter with a knack for seeing the ball through the hoop, who's shown an impressive amount of growth in key areas over time. He's averaging 16.3 points, 4.3 rebounds, and 2.9 assists per game while shooting 39% overall, 35% from beyond the arc, and 80% at the line. Not great efficiency, but all on decent volume. He'll be just over 19.5 on draft night, and while Baylor has been a little underwhelming thus far this season, George has been asked to do a ton of heavy lifting as a freshman. Here's how Heat Check works. I will identify one NBA draft prospect and grade what I believe to be their 5 most generally important skills regarding the NBA: scoring, defense, passing and playmaking, athleticism, and overall feel for the game. Since no two prospects are alike, I'll grade a few additional areas specific to that player deemed the swing skills. Each skill will be graded on the Heat Check chart, with ranges from cold all the way to scorching. When that's all said and done, I'll divvy out one final overall score that will have absolutely no bearing or real-world effect on said player whatsoever. Let's start out with Keyonte's athleticism. By most standards, Keyonte is going to be in the lower tier of NBA athletes. I don't think he's a bad athlete by any means. Even in college, he's probably average, but he just doesn't have exceptional speed, power, or verticality to his game. For some reason, this seems like kind of an unpopular read on Keyonte among draft circles. Seems like a lot of write-ups have him as a good to great athlete, and I simply don't think that's true from watching the tape. There's flashes for sure, he can pop up and surprise you, but I think overall it's definitely not something that he currently or will ever rely on, and that's not always a bad thing in today's NBA. Keyonte's scoring is by far his most tantalizing attribute, thus a grade of hot here. Averaging 16.3 points on 39% shooting overall, George is one of the most lethal freshman scorers in the entire country. He's aggressive and looks to score often, he's uber confident, and has shown promise at all 3 levels. All in all, he's got next level scoring instincts. He's shooting 54% at the rim, 35% on all jump shots, and 34% on catch and shoot 3-pointers. I know, not great numbers across the board, but like I said, Baylor's asked him to do a ton as a freshman, and he's got just enough volume under his belt, and he passes the eye test just enough for me to really believe in his scoring. He's a threat both on and off ball. On ball, he's an adept handler with a broad array of dribble moves. Again, he's not a speed freak, quick twitch, or overly athletic guy, so on ball he uses a combination of great ball handling, change of pace, and maneuvering to score. He's much more physical than your modern combo guard, and he uses it to his advantage well. Ironically, it's what makes him such a dangerous scorer. He's not constantly trying to blow by you or play bully ball, but he uses that relentless, pick you apart style that can be a really good thing once it's mastered. Off ball, he's just as deadly. He stays really active, and he's got great awareness and a beautiful quick-fire shot form. He's shooting around 36% from 3 overall, but doing so on 7 attempts per game. With his form and how instinctual he is, I fully anticipate that number to rise as time goes on. His shot variation is great, and he hits a ton of really advanced and tough looks, so that number doesn't concern me at all. On unguarded catch and shoot shots, he's shooting 47%, an excellent grade on Synergy Sports, and as the focal point and offensive hub of the Baylor Bears, who sees a ton of defensive attention, I think that bodes really well for NBA spacing and his role in the NBA. Simply put, I think he shoots it well enough to be gravitational, and that, in and of itself, is a win for his game. Lastly, he's really good at drawing contact and getting to the line. He's hitting on 80% of his 4.6 free throws per game, another thing stars have become really good at in the NBA. There's lots of cons that we can get into. He's streaky, his decision making can be questionable at times, he's more of a shot maker than a shot creator, a huge turnoff for a lot of people, but I think overall, to me, a lot of stuff can be ironed out for him in various ways, and in my mind, he's absolutely an eventual 3-level scorer in the NBA. Some might disagree based on the numbers, totally respect that. Defensively, I'm feeling warm on Keyonte. Size-wise, at 6'3" to 4-ish, I'd almost always be looking at a cool grade here, but defensively he cares a ton and always gets after it. He, of course, has the regular freshman moments and defensive lapses, and I don't think his size will allow him to be a truly high-impact defender in the NBA, but for the most part, his defensive product as a whole has been encouraging. I really like him on ball. He's attentive and aggressive. Off ball, he's more prone to falling asleep and just generally a little less good, but it's still not bad by any means. He does gamble a bit too much, but all his lapses, I feel, are easily cleaned up, and there's a path forward to him being a positive in the NBA. Typically, we've seen microwave scoring guards care about getting theirs and getting out, but I absolutely think Keyonte George is cut from a different cloth, and that's why I'm so willing to go off path on this eval. Alright, passing and playmaking. This was probably Keyonte's biggest improvement point coming into the year, because as a true tweener between point guard and shooting guard, it's a skill he'll likely need if he wants more responsibility in the NBA. I don't think he'll ever be used in a primary sort of way, so I'm not going to judge him as so. I'm feeling warm on it, and leaning closer to hot on his playmaking specifically. It's hard to explain because, again, the numbers aren't totally there, 83 assists to 87 turnovers on the year, and I do think it is something he'll struggle with, especially early on in the NBA, but his passing instincts are really, really good. He's at times shown to be a really quick processor, and he can really hum that thing. He's got good floor vision, but isn't always the most accurate, and he telegraphs stuff just a bit too much. As a playmaker, he's shown real promise, and is only continuing to improve in that area. Baylor has leaned on him as a scorer more of late, but he's already given enough flashes here and there to really intrigue in that area. I'm feeling hot on Keyonte George's unquantifiable feel for the game. I would absolutely describe him as a high field player. He's got instincts all over the basketball court that are simply unteachable. He's reactive with the ball in hand. He can feel when to zigzag and find space off ball. He's got that innate, clairvoyant sense for drawing contact. It shines through in shorter bursts when he's passing, playmaking, and defending, but it's still very much there at times in these, wow, didn't realize he could do that type moments. On the flip side, he does get overzealous across the board, shooting, passing, defending, all of it, but I think most of it is with good intentions rather than him being a truly bad decision maker. Take it for what you will. I think he's got straight up it factor, and I have since his IMG days. Alright, the swing skills. Like I mentioned earlier, one of the bigger swing skills for Keyonte is his passing and playmaking, especially depending on the role his future team wants for him. But since we've covered that, we'll move on to shot selection. Despite being able to take and make nearly any shot in the book, Keyonte's shot selection is pretty questionable at times, and it's led to really cold stretches that affect his overall efficiency and, more importantly, his team winning games. I'm grading it warm, however, because it's just not something I'm necessarily worried about for a few reasons. Again, Baylor has asked so much of him and has basically relied on him to go get buckets often, especially in crunch time. Once he's in a more simplified NBA role, barring him going to a team that's able to completely let him go wild from the get-go, I think he's a smart enough player that he'll tone it down. Secondly, I'm operating under the assumption that the splits across the board are going to improve as time goes on. I honestly just think he's that good of a scorer, and he's just an incredible shot maker as it is. Once he has NBA spacing and similarly skilled players around him, I think it's going to open things up just enough to make him even more potent. Creation. Creation is the one thing that gives me the most pause about Keyonte out of all the issues. His lack of speed, burst, and his so-so first step really create a lack of separation between him and defenders. And it doesn't help that I think that's one of the steepest learning curves when integrating into the NBA. Defenders are longer, stronger, faster, and it's not going to get any easier to generate space for himself, even with a quick draw jumper. It's the reason why a top 10 pick in Johnny Davis has had trouble even assimilating into the G League. I don't think it's going to be a career killer for Keyonte by any means. His combination of handle, physicality, herky-jerky style, and perimeter shooting make him good enough as a player as is, but his ability to create for himself and his on-ball scoring will directly impact his ceiling. It could severely limit him, especially if he's not able to push into that upper echelon of cerebral style players. It could very well mean the difference between being the 4th best talent in this draft or the 12th. I'm grading him cool here, but I'm going with my gut and thinking he'll be closer to the former in terms of prospects. The grade. I have gone with my gut here, and I've given Keyonte a grade of 8.4. I really buy that he's going to be a legitimate scorer in the NBA. I think the splits come around. I think he's savvy and skilled enough that his floor will be 6-man, and ceiling is a legitimate 15 to 20 a game guy, starting in a decent backcourt who can actually buckle up on defense and add some playmaking here and there. Even if that means primarily playing off ball and heavily attacking closeouts, I still believe in the shooting, shot making, and here and there creation. There are going to be issues. He's going to shoot you out of games here and there. He's going to be turnover prone early in his career. He's likely never going to be some primary ball handler. But I really trust a guy with this type of confidence, who's got great feel and instincts and can show it on the biggest stage. I don't see him losing that and seeing any subsequent fall off. So I value his floor and ceiling as a scorer in this draft. He has unfortunately not lived up to my previous expectations as the number 3 guy in this class, but I genuinely think he could go anywhere from 4 to 9-ish, and I don't see him falling much further than that. I would probably take him at 5 or 6. That's it for this one. Let me know what you thought of Keyonte, what you'd grade him. Let me know who you want to see next, and we'll see you next time.